Hi everyone, this is Syrian Girl. They say that the definition of a stupid person is one who is damaging not only to others but to themselves. This is what I'm reminded of when I heard that the Syrian insurgents have taken hostages of the UN monitors on the Golan Heights border. The Golan Heights being a part of Syria that is illegally being occupied by Israel. These low-ranking insurgents, who are being used as cannon fodder for the NATO powers in Israel, have come off their leash and are biting the hand that feeds them. And nothing could be funnier because this has really embarrassed the European and US governments and the international supporters of these insurgents because it has revealed them to be the mindless terrorists that they are. As a result of this embarrassment, the mainstream media has been falling over itself to sugarcoat the hostage-taking. Just reading these headlines by The Telegraph, the choice of words are very revealing and a subtle use of propaganda. First of all, mainstream media calls them rebels, not insurgents, although the definition of insurgency is a force who is fighting a government, so it is more fitting. They would still rather use rebels because insurgent has negative connotations. And instead of kidnapping, hostage, or capture, they use the word detain, which carries connotations of authority. For example, police might detain a suspect. The Telegraph aren't the only ones who are trying to pull these tricks. Another contender is the BBC, who says the headline is UN observers are being detained by the Syrian rebels. And down the line, you see the use of the word guests. Sure, the UN observers are guests held by force at gunpoint, but never mind, they're being treated as guests. Another headline is seized UN observers are being well treated by the Syrian rebels. And scrolling down, the second headline is safe hands. And what was UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's reaction? He didn't condemn the rebels, he simply demanded that both the Syrian government and the rebels respect the freedom of movement of the security of the UN. So, a slap on the wrist for both, even though it's only the rebels who are taking hostages. France 24 even went as far as to try to implicate the Syrian government in the hostage-taking, alluding to a conspiracy or a false flag, saying it was counterproductive for the insurgents to bite the hand that feeds them, so perhaps it was all ordered by Damascus. Unfortunately for them, the high-ranking spokespeople for the Free Syrian Army insurgents, realizing what a stupid mistake these low-ranking insurgents had made, came up with another narrative. That is, that they admitted the rebels took the UN monitors, but claimed it was all a misunderstanding, and the rebels were rescuing the UN observers from the Syrian army. Unfortunately for them, that is not what the initial statement was from the hostage takers. The hostage takers, calling themselves the Yarmouk Martyrs Brigade, made a video statement that if the Syrian army doesn't concede to its demands, that the UN monitors will be treated as prisoners, which is what they are anyway, but perhaps what this means is something far more sinister. The Yarmouk Martyrs Brigade has a video of themselves executing Syrian soldiers that they had taken prisoner. The insurgents, in their initial statement, said that the UN monitors were helping the Syrian army take over Jamla village, and the reason they stated for this was because the Syrian government is supposedly secretly colluding with Israel. Going back to the definition of stupid, in the first place you have to be stupid to take US funding and support from Zionists like Joe Lieberman and Henry Levy and still believe yourself to be fighting Israel. And that is exactly what the Americans were banking on with this insurgency, and there is proof of this. And that is exactly what the Americans were banking on for the success of this insurgency. On the Public Intelligence website, there is a document called the US Guide to the Syrian People, which explains what arguments one must use to divide and conquer the Syrian people. In it is the narrative held by what they name as rural Sunnis, who believe that the Syrian government is secretly colluding with Israel. It then explains that through preying on this belief, that Syria can be broken up and destroyed. The final hilarious piece of irony is the higher ranking FSA insurgents promised the imminent release of the UN monitors. Only the low level rebels, calling themselves the Yarmouk Martyrs Brigade, reneged on the promise and kept a hold of them. This RT headline really cracked me up. I'm really curious as to how the MSM are gonna spin this one. And on a final note, I have 2 videos coming up, so please look out for them. Thanks very much. This has been Syrian Girl.